I'm really interested in why artists make art, especially right now. I think artists make art in reaction to things. There's art as a business that's being disrupted by this generative AI, generative art, et cetera. But artists in general are that kind of contagion, or like a sand in the shell that creates a pearl once in a while, and then an oyster. I like that part. Artists as innovators. That's something I used to believe in, and now I think because of AI, I believe I have to believe in even more.
Do you think, can I just click on that a second? My intuition is going to tell me that there'll be a new renaissance, an allergic reaction, something that will happen that we can't foresee because of either the real disruption or the perceived disruption. Even just the threats of disruption will kind of elicit a response. And I'm personally very excited to see that.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Would you see that? Have you seen any emergence of that?
It's hard to, like, I'm at a gathering of technologists at Miami, has something called the Center for Black Innovation. And it's been great to work with small business owners who are way ahead with AI. They're people who are making GPTs, and they're like businesses of one or two. And it's been inspired by the excitement by all kinds of people to use this AI to get ahead. And I think in the arts, either if you're on the business side of art, like what can sell versus what's investable art, that's one thing. But for artists who make art, um, they're either going to be in the camp of sort of like, wow, I can make so much more art. I can sit there in Midjourney and do all these things. I'm amazed every day and I'm satisfied. Versus I was making things that looked like Midjourney artwork, and now I don't get any jobs anymore for a commercial artist. That's a thing. And you have the super artists who are really in a rare privileged position to make things for the Guggenheim or MoMA or whatever, and they get to play. Maybe someone will buy it, maybe someone doesn't, but it doesn't really matter because they aren't making a living off of it per se. And then there's category 4, the one I think you're talking about, which is, hey, I got to get my act together. And I've got to evolve or fall behind. And if this is where people are now, I want to see around the corner. Okay, game on. I think that category, I subscribe to that, which I think is a small group that's growing. So I agree.
Good to know. So going into your kind of maybe a bit of your career plus how that can lean into where we are now, you've kind of straddled academia and massive enterprises. You just touched on the fact that you're talking to small businesses and seeing where they're at. From those, maybe that trifecta, SMEs, enterprises, academia, where are you seeing the greater rates of innovation or promise or excitement? Is something what's exciting you in these spaces? Like, is it what's going on? Maybe you have to say Microsoft, but is it what's going on at the largest end of the scale, or are you seeing things from MIT or seeing things from small businesses that are equally as exciting?
I think that innovation is relative to what people believe they're supposed to be innovating. I think if you're in the pure tech sector, you're wondering what you can do with a few more trillion parameters or a few less trillion parameters. You're fascinated by that. You're fascinated by looping mechanisms, so-called chain of thought ways, or even advanced ways to build better inferences. You're fascinated by that. And then in the art world, I think you're waiting for like Midjourney whatever or Runway whatever version. It's like Photoshop. It was like, Photoshop 3 just came out. Oh my gosh, I've got to have it. 3.5? You have 3.5? How did you get that? I think that's that kind of thing. And then I'm here among the small business owners, and they're like excited because they are time strapped capital starved, and they're able to now use AI in their workflows to help them do work that they can't afford to pay people for. Someone said to me, with my $20 chat GPT subscription, I've now got like the equivalent of 2 more employees that I get to work with, which is not meant to be an over exuberant tech world thing. It's just like the regular person trying to make ends meet is getting value out of it. Is a story I haven't been able to see so clearly. So it's great to be in this environment like right now. I'm like, wow.
That's really interesting. So maybe for the sake of our audience and for someone in your position, could you actually help us understand AI a little better? Could you just help us maybe demystify a little bit? There's a lot of terms that get bandied around. But is it, if we could take away some for the non-technical, but the very interested, like, is there something you could maybe just unpack a little bit in terms of what is it doing and why should we care?
Well, one thing I'm really happy with is that I get to talk to all kinds of people, a lot of executives across different verticals, and a lot of them are struggling with understanding this kind of AI because they know the kind of AI that doesn't work so well. And so like, we invested in an AI project 4 years ago. We hired data scientists and like they built a model. The model took like 18 months. Just didn't work. We did all this work to get the data and just wasn't good enough, so we scrapped it. That's the war people from 20 years ago. We invested in expert systems. They were using this if-then logic, and we spent millions of dollars, and it didn't work. So either that era or the recent era. I think what's really hard right now is that this is a new kind of AI that we never had access to in the past. So the way I explain it is this new AI sensation, this new kind of girl band, boy band that arrived all of a sudden, and people are screaming, for BTS. Like, what is it? They all have the same hairstyle. Who cares? Well, it's very simple. There's 2 models that have arrived at the same time at a mature level. And when you combine them 2 together, you get something very special. You fulfill the prophecy of what intelligence smells like by a man named Herbert Simon, who described intelligence as 2 blades of a scissors: cognition, thinking, and context, memory. When you have the 2 together and you listen to someone, they're like, that's a person. It's a full person. If someone has amnesia, missing the context blade, they're thinking, but they don't have context. Or you have someone who has like all the information on Earth, but isn't too bright. All context, no intelligence. So the 2 models together were never available to us until last year. The cognition model completes the sentence. And if you let it complete the sentence without any grounding, it's going to just give you a sentence. The similarity model is able to search through unstructured data and find similar things that match my favorite food. It'll find all the different kind of favorite foods in restaurants, and I now give that to the completion model, and when it completes a sentence John likes, it'll just finish the sentence of all the context before it. These 2 models are working together at the same time. The similarity model is not as popular, but it's probably where people should spend the most time. So-called embeddings or latent space.
Could you maybe give us a 2-minute explanation on that as well? Like, I think the deeper we go here, the more value we're getting, because I'd really appreciate it.
Okay, so let's do I call it the right hand, left hand. Usually people are right hand dominant. The right hand is the completion model. It's the one that like talks. The left hand is hidden out of view. It's actually kind of clever. The right hand completion, fill in the blank. Fill in the, if you're European, you'd say, I think you're hallucinating. It should say fill in the gap. But if you're North American, you say fill in the blank. And then, no, you're a European. That's bias built in the model. How do you bend the bias? You give it context. I'm speaking to a British person, fill in the, it's going to go gap. because it changed the past to affect the future. This embedding model that finds different information for you is interesting because there are many representations. There's this beautifully designed thing I saw in The Guardian that really explains it really well. But again, if you understand it and you look at the diagram, it makes sense. But if you don't, it doesn't. So I do it this way. Compare the word dog to the word fog. Now, if you're a computer, you're like, oh, those words are really similar. D-O-G, F-O-G, three-letter, two-letter, O-G. It's 66% similar, or maybe 70% to a computer. To a human, you're like, dog and fog? No, it's different things. So if I gave a number to it as a human, I would say it's like 0.3 similar, where 1 is very similar. Okay. A computer would say it's 0.7 similar. Get it wrong. That's dog versus fog. Let me compare the word dog to my favorite pet. That's a 3-letter word compared to 3 words. A computer would not know what to do with that. But we humans were like, pets, dogs. I didn't have one, but yeah, that's like a 0.8 similar maybe, right? We're like, my favorite pet and the bicycle that I had as a child. Sentence to sentence. Or this sentence of like, I like wizardry to the whole book Harry Potter. This system, the similarity model can assign a number from 0 to 1. I love wizardry, Harry Potter, it's 0.9 similar. So what's weird about this is it can compare things in the semantic space, not in the character space. And that's why it's interesting.
John, that was an amazing. That is by far the clearest explanation that I've heard anyone say in this area. So thank you very much for that. I'm gonna quit. We've not had enough audience questions today, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna just jump into a couple of those straight away.
Questions, yeah.
And so I'm gonna start with a non-AI one, and this is from Hillary. Which era of design has inspired you the most?
Of design, which era of design or area of design?
Era, yeah. So which
era. Well, the problem with knowing too much is you sort of like learn, thinking you know something and learning you're wrong. Like, for instance, I had to be a fan of the Bauhaus era, but then I discovered that the Bauhaus was 50% women, 50% male, 50% female. And the only Bauhaus masters we know are men. So I'm like, okay, that's a wrong piece of history that I learned incorrectly. Then I learned that the Bauhaus existed in reaction to the V&A and the Royal College of Art, because the Germans were jealous of the British. So in the mid-1800s, the British Department of Science and Art or something like that made that. And the British were jealous of the French. That's why they made the Royal College of Art. So anyways, everything is connected, sort of. So it used to be the Bauhaus. I think my favorite era appears to be now the British version of it, because probably because I'm English speaking.
I'll take it. I'll take the British version. Okay. I don't know who this question is from, but I'm gonna read it. Is AI, maybe we'll say generative AI, but let's say AI, is AI intelligent today?
I subscribe to the belief. So like in the 1980s, I took AI at MIT as an undergrad. And if you remember being an undergrad, those who went to college can agree with me that maybe you didn't take it too seriously. So my AI professor was this man named Joseph Weizenbaum, who I skipped those classes, and I was like, oh, it's so boring. And then years later, I discovered that he invented the first chatbot, the first AI chatbot in 1966. And I was struck by his history because he didn't go off and make a company as an MIT person. He railed against his concerns around a machine that responds to you back in text as the most dangerous kind of technology to give to a despot, because he fled Nazi Germany as a youth, but was concerned about technology and what it could do to society. So in the 70s, he wrote a book specifically about this for liberal arts readers. And it specifically says, he realized after creating this program that anyone of any sophistication, if they start typing to it, they can't leave the delusion that it's a human being for real. So he believed that we humans, when we see words typed at us, cannot help but imagine it's a person. So I subscribe to the fact that the AI that I use is just a tool, and I use it as a tool and everything. I never imagine there is a human soul behind it. And that is just my personal belief. And I think that by doing so, I can ask questions about how to put it into practice. But if you start talking to it, you end up in a 1966 old sort of like Star Trek or Ripley's or Twilight Zone episode that I've been trained to avoid.
Will AI, as this is from Karen, sorry, will AI eliminate, that's maybe too bombastic, let's ask, will AI eliminate entry-level jobs in the design industry?
This phrase entry-level jobs is funny because it keeps changing. So anyway, so I remember, entry level in graphic design might have been you cutting up sort of photographic paper where there's like paragraphs or words and you're cutting out with X-Acto knife and rubber cementing it. That was an entry level job. The entry level job changed because of desktop publishing. So I imagine that a lot of entry level jobs are going to go away, like they always do with every new advancement. The question is, how will we evolve and answer that? So I like the original, so when you open, it's like, yeah, like, so should we be concerned in any form? You should be concerned if you're not changing. I like the phrase by Eric Shinseki. He was like a general, I forget which military division. He said, if you don't like change, you're going to like irrelevance even less. So we're in that world, which I have trained myself to be okay with. Laurels are okay. Rest isn't, is something I've lived by.
I'm going to have to get a bunch of new tattoos, I think, after this. Got some wonderful John quotes. So I'm going to ask one of my questions now, because I have a wonderful team of creatives that have embraced AI. And the thing I'm most proud of them for is their tolerance for discomfort, that they have been willing to absolutely go into this non-flow state, to go into this area where they don't feel comfortable. And then I've seen some incredible transformation. There is obviously the wider design community, creative community. And another quote from you is that you see education as a normalizing force. And I'd like for you to, say if entry-level jobs will change, how can creatives educate themselves to thrive? Like, is there anything that's tactical?
I would be looking for jobs where you can learn how to use this kind of AI to become more fluent in it, because that's the new entry-level job. I think the entry-level job so this is the problem with education, is that education is really good if the thing you're learning hasn't changed much. Like, I think if you're an English professor, you're pretty good. If you're a history of ancient literature professor, you're pretty good. GPT is coming into your territory, but if you had to hire a human that does that, I think you're all set. If you're a computer science professor or a illustration professor or any of these things that's going to hit like directly, the sad thing is that you're being paid to teach students with all of your energy, so you're too tired to learn something new. I noticed this in the digital era, where you would hire a professor who was good at Photoshop 3.5. And 4 years later, they can only use Photoshop 3.5, not because they're lazy, because they're tired. But all the students want to use Photoshop 7. So education drains the people who are teaching and also limits the students who aren't getting the most advanced stuff in times of change. So a job, you're better off going for a job, because jobs are market-centric and they have to change or they can't survive. And those new intern jobs are just going to be different. And the thing your professor said would be your intern job, if it goes away, it's not their fault.
This is amazing. John, if we could do, we've got 7 minutes left, but if I can do this with you twice a week, every week, I'd really appreciate it. Okay, question from Jason. Tell us about your role in developing Microsoft Copilots. I don't know if that is true or not, but any biggest learnings from mistakes, or anything maybe towards semantic kernel, or anything just maybe within what's going on in the day-to-day?
No, I can't take any credit for all that work. I joined in October of like 2022, so I showed up late to the party. It was funny when I joined Microsoft in October 2022 to do AI. People were laughing at me, and then there was November, and then December, the ChatGPT revolution happened. And people said, "Did you plan that?" I said, "No, I didn't plan that. I had to move to Seattle to take care of my aging parents. That was my plan." And I thought, "Oh, maybe I'll sit around this sort of sleepy part of like technology." So really, my new colleagues have done all that work, so I can't claim credit for that. I've been active in the development of a project called Semantic Kernel, which allows, I would say, developers, designers, product leaders to demystify how this stuff works. And we're keeping pace with the latest technology. In the latest release, we're adding the OpenAI assistant paradigm, multiple agents and things like that. But if you're trying to catch up to how things were in AI, we have all the parts for you to use, and it's open source, so it doesn't cost you anything. So I like that. I like open source. Yeah.
Okay. Another one of me questions. I've got this little latent space going on in my mind, trying to understand what multi-agent will mean when things are truly multi-agent.
Yeah.
So have you got any thoughts in that space of what that could potentially unlock once we really get to that area?
Yeah. Well, just for those who this phrase latent space is unfamiliar, there's this guy named Linus at Notion who does some really cool demos in what is latent space, which the analogy I use, for those of you who bothered to understand GIF versus JPEG or GIF versus JPEG. So a GIF or GIF image is able to take an image and compress it smaller because it's just taking like pixels across a row. There's red, 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 red. It just counts the number of red pixels, and that's a lot cheaper than putting red, 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 red. It's like having a bunch of cookies versus saying how many cookies. And that's an easy thing to understand. JPEG, when it came out, blew everyone's mind because it was like, how did the image get so small? Because for a photograph, everything is all different. So there is no single run length of the same pixel color. So it's just expensive, all these pixels. So those of you who know this, I'm sorry to bother you, but a JPEG image takes an image and moves it to the frequency domain, which some people are like, whoa, what is that? Think of it like the upside down world in Stranger Things. It's like, whoa, it's this weird zany world over there that no one understands. And all they do is when they bring it back, it's like a teleporter. They teleport things from the upside down world of frequency space back. That's why you have JPEG artifacts. Okay, so latent space is the same thing, sort of. It's taking something that you knew and moving into another upside down world of it isn't frequency anymore. It's higher order space. So it really is very Stranger Things-ish. And then when you bring it back, it's not the same. And that's really important to note. And sometimes you can't come back from that dimension. But when you're in that dimension, you can understand, you can work on the understanding level versus the pixel level or the character level of things. Now, there's a new thing called multi-agent, which is not new because it existed in the late 90s called artificial life. There was called actor-based computing, and there was agents as well, but it was always played. Anyone who loves this kind of stuff should look at cellular automatas. I used to love cellular automatas. But cellular automatas are an example of generative art before it kind of took off. But anyways, I digress. So the whole point of the whole point of latent, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
Multi-agent.
Multi-agent. So multi-agents Used to be a thing. Now they're really hot. Why are they hot? It's because prompting is one thing, but what we've known with prompting is that when you're prompting something, so-called chain of thought reasoning is good. Meaning, like if you ever hired someone and said, go do that. It's like, okay, boss. You say, hold it. Tell me what you would have, tell me the steps that are required. So the person's thinking like, well, boss, I should open the cabinet. Good. I should pull the shelf out. Exactly. I should then sort of mix the thing. Good. Okay. Now go do it. Chain of thought reasoning. That is like talking to someone else, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So that is essentially why if you just complete the sentence, you're not thinking. If you think before you complete the sentence, good. So multi-agent is good because it shows you that before you talk, go talk to someone else, work it out, and then come back. But what people are discovering is that just like human beings, if you bring 5 agents together, now you're talking through like 8 different opinions. You can't converge so easily. So I think we're discovering that it's good for feedback, but like us humans, too many inputs, and then you end up with a weird-looking animal that you've all had consensus around.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed watching the video and have plenty of notes to share with your team. If not, you can always just watch the webinar again and again, or use AI to generate some notes for you. Now, there are 9 session recordings in total, so if you want to see more, sign up at the link in the description to get access. Thanks for watching.